You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am your host this evening, Joe Mays. Sadly, not with me for this recording is my co-host, Justin Raffoff. He will be back soon, and we will have a full slate of coverage coming for you over the next few months, really. Next weekend will be the unofficial kickoff of the season as the scrimmage gets underway on Saturday. That is August 19th against Coatesville. It is at home, so you can come and take a look at the 2023 Wilson football team on Saturday morning at Gursky. But tonight we have the recorded interview that I did with Coach Dahms a few weeks ago. It's a long one. He and I talked for about an hour, covering a lot of topics: the departure of assistant coach Matt Bender, his humanitarian and educational trip to Jamaica, which is great. It's right at the beginning. We talk about it for a while. And then, of course, a variety of topics covering the 2022 season and the upcoming 2023 season. Always great to sit down with Doug, and we hope you enjoy the interview as well. Just a few housekeeping things here want to take care of. Most importantly, want to thank our sponsors. They are really stepping up and helping us out this year. Not only my dad, Bill Mays, and Mays Sandwich Shop, but coming on board recently are the great folks at White Star Tours as presenting sponsors of the Bulldog Hour for Season 9 here and the Wilson Football 2023 season. Really appreciate everyone helping us out in any way you can. A few others have come back on board as well. Besides Mays Sandwich Shop and White Star Tours, Mike Drago and MikeDragoSports.com back for yet another season with us here at the Bulldog Hour, as well as the Hop family and 3 anonymous donors. I've now had to edit this sponsor slide here multiple times, which is not me complaining. Trust me, I appreciate everyone and their generosity over the, not over the last few weeks, few months, but also the last 9 years, as we've had a few people with us along the way. Really, really appreciate that. And there are multiple ways you can help us here. Sponsorships, advertising, the in-kind donations go a long way. The website is definitely a great repository for all things Wilson football and the Bulldog Hour, so check out bulldoghour.com for more. And I'll fill in for Justin again and say like and share any of our content that we put out there: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast, we would love for you to like and share. It does a great deal for us and our engagement. But I think that is it for us then here with the introductory stuff. Maybe one last thing. You can catch us live next Sunday, August 20th at 8:30. We will recap the Coatesville scrimmage and look ahead to the season at large, as when we're on that show, it will be less than a week until kickoff of the regular season. Wilson at Roman Catholic to be played at Upper Dublin. More on that soon, but our season preview will be on Sunday, August 20th, and we will be joined by the one and only Paul Roberts from SV Sports. He will sit down here with us and give us a preview for Wilson football in 2023. All right, so that is it for me and the introduction. Now sit back and relax for the next hour and hear me talk to Wilson head coach Doug Dahms.
All right, welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I'm sitting here now with the man himself, Wilson Bulldogs head coach, Doug Dahms. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for doing this, Joey. You always do a great job getting Wilson football out there and keeping our public informed and our fans informed.
Well, thanks. Justin and I try to do that as much as we can. Unfortunately, he couldn't join me today to interview you, but we know he's thinking about us as we sit here in the coach's den, getting ready to talk about the 2023 season. And Justin will be back for the next episode. Let's talk a little bit about let's talk about you first. I know you love to talk about yourself. You're back for your 18th year as head coach, 48th on the staff, a whole bunch of accolades and things like that. But what are your motivations to keep coaching? I just asked your assistants that in the last interview session. What keeps bringing you back to coach Wilson football?
Well, it's always a challenge, and you like the challenge of prepping for the other teams, matching wits, with some of the other coaches, and just seeing how much you can get out of the kids, right? Because they never know their limits. And of course, you love working with the kids. Obviously, I taught all those years for that reason, and I've coached all those years. Like to see what you can do when you can take a kid that is an average football player and make him a good football player, take a good football player and make him a great football player. And it's just fun. Not to mention the camaraderie with the coaches, and their families that who have been with me for so long. One big happy family.
A couple of big changes. You just mentioned the coaching staff and your connections with them and your family. Had a couple of changes this year, but probably the biggest, most notable because of the longevity of him being here was Coach Matt Bender retired from coaching. What did Coach Bender mean to you and the team over the last 25 years?
Coach Bender he's OC.
He's very particular, very precise.
I mean, everything in its place. So he's the guy that made sure all the headsets were ready to go. Everything was ready to go for every game. Every mouthpiece, just super organized that way. On that side, behind the scenes side, that people don't see. On the field, he was our signal caller. He did a great job for us. Settling me down sometimes. As well as getting our linebackers ready to play and making the adjustments we had to make. I know when he was leaving, it was very, very difficult for him. Football's been such a huge part of his life all this time, and he's been a huge part of our football program. So we're going to miss him. The good part is that we had Anthony Ciato working with Matt the last couple of years, all right, as a volunteer. And so he's going to step in. And there'll be some growing pains there and everything else because now he's in charge. He's got to design the drills. He's got to pick up the small parts and the little things. So, but, we will miss Matt, without a doubt.
Who's filling in for him on those behind the scenes things? Is that something that Anthony's also picking up, or is that going to be done, by committee?
Anthony will pick a little bit of it up. Matt will still help us out, at least for the next year or two to get things going. But pretty much Chase Godfrey's going to be taking over all that behind the scenes stuff.
All right. Well, in addition to Coach Bender retiring and moving on, you also had a few announcements recently. You retired from your teaching position, a long time teaching here at Wilson. Also reducing your role with the track teams, I believe. Still going to help out, but not as the head guy. What was the motivation for you there? What was the reasoning behind stepping back in those areas at this time?
Very, very difficult. All right. As my wife kept telling me, Susie kept telling me, we would like to travel a little bit more than we are able to. You can't get away when you're head football coach. Your summers, we typically go to Jamaica and do some humanitarian work for a week in the summer and then visit our granddaughter in North Carolina, and that's it. And other than that, with track, I was booked nonstop, football nonstop. So she looked at it as a way of us getting a little bit more free time, especially in the springtime, to do some traveling. Stepping away from the teaching was very hard because you just build a rapport with those kids, especially the ones I had, almost all advanced placement kids. They kept you young. They kept you really involved. They kept me on my toes, and that's going to be tough. But stepping away if I hadn't stepped away from coaching in track, then I still wouldn't have any time anyway to travel. So by stepping back in track, and as I told my staff, if I'm here, I'll be there to help out. but this will give me a little bit more freedom to travel, especially in spring, March, April, right? When football hasn't really cranked up yet, and track's just cranking up. So tough decisions, but somebody will take over and they'll do just as good a job.
Do you have an idea of who is filling in at track?
Joe Waterson, I think,
Okay.
longtime assistant's
Mhm.
going to take the head job, and then we had we brought a new young throws coach on last year, Hannah Weddle, and she did a nice job. She's learning. And as I said, I'll still be around to help the throws coaches as well as to help Joe with all the administrative stuff that
Right.
nobody really
That
realizes.
no one understands. Yeah, that's a huge
Not to
part of it.
mention running the Stephen meet, the junior girls all county meet. I'll probably get hornswoggled into that.
You brought it up, and I wanted to ask you about it. I just wanted to get a little bit more information on your Jamaica endeavors, because I know it was a big part of your curriculum in the winter. Usually went end of January, I think,
Yeah.
and then back in the summer. You just talk a little bit about that, how that got started, and the aspects of both the educational trip in the winter and then your summer trip. You mentioned the humanitarian aspect. I don't think a lot of people or enough people know about it, so I just wanted to give you some time to kind of mention what it's about.
Well, back in 1995, I took a graduate course there with Hofstra University in a little town called Priory, which is on the north shore of Jamaica. And I thought, I could do this with high school students and they'd tremendously benefit from it. So 1996, I wrote the curriculum, went and proposed it to the board. 1997, we took our first group of 24 high school students down there. And that first year was pretty much all marine biology, which is what I taught for 9 days, the equivalent of about a semester of college in 9 days. So it's pretty intense. But what we found was there's an infirmary there for people that are either crippled or mentally infirmed, and it's a poorhouse. Right? It's government owned. And they didn't have anything. They had the bed they slept in. You walk in, it's barracks on both sides with about 25 or 30 cots. Not nice, not neat, pretty eye-opening, But we thought it'd be a great thing to expose the kids to that. So we took the kids up there the first year. We took them there and said, you only have to go once, all right? Because we only go up for about 45 minutes a day. And so we took them all up the first day. We sat down to talk to a guy named Roland, who we had become good friends with. And we were talking with him for about 10 minutes. I said, well, let me introduce you to my students. You turn around, and the students are all out through the entire infirmary, sitting on the beds, holding hands and talking to all the patients. And that's opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Wow, what can this be? So what has happened is Susie, my wife, and Carol and Howells, who's going with us every year, they kind of took over the humanitarian part because the kids were coming back and saying, hey, can you get this? Can you get this? And we started out small, just taking, toiletries, some clothing, things like that, because technically they weren't supposed to have anything. Then we started taking them CD radios and things like that, and cell phones, and before you know it, we're starting to take everything and anything. I mean, probably the biggest eye opener was the year we started taking laptops, because these people were isolated from the world, never left the place, and now all of a sudden they can have contact to the world. One problem, the Wi-Fi. So I thought, well, let's get the matron, the head of the place, a really nice laptop. So we got her a nice laptop, and then within 30 days they have Wi-Fi. So that let them contact the world. So our kids have been, the kids are still, many of the kids that went way back then are still in contact with the people at the infirmary because, they've become friends. And that's something that a part of the trip that has become huge. I mean, we take 25 suitcases of supplies every year for people in the infirmary and the local people that work there. Do a tremendous amount of humanitarian work there. We take 450 sets of school supplies to the kids up in the hills every year. When we take the kids up to Bob Marley's birthplace at 9 Mile. Everybody there knows us because, we just are constantly bringing things they need. People have to understand that in Jamaica, there's no welfare, there's no unemployment, there's nobody to take. If you don't have it, you don't have it. There's nowhere to go. So we're a big source for that little tiny town of Priory. And it's kind of funny because when we walk through town, it's always, oh, Auntie Susie or Professor. They all call me.
Yeah, they call you Professor.
Yeah. And the kids have really bought into it. The community has bought into it. We have a lot of people that have, some of the elementary teachers have collected things for us. People donate things for us. People just donate money because, Susie buys a lot of groceries down there for the people in the infirmary because their lunch is their big meal. They'll get a little bit of root vegetable and a little bit of chicken or fish. And then for dinner, they get soup and crackers. That's dinner. So we usually do a peanut butter and jelly sandwich day where we make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The students make it for everybody in the infirmary. And then we take big 10-gallon bottles of Tang and, give everybody this stuff. And they really love that. But as I said, Susie and Carol will go out shopping. And for the ones that are with it, and bring them, groceries that won't last them long, but at least it's a little different for them. But, it's become a huge humanitarian thing, right? And we've at the point now where we're taking 2 trips every winter, because we have so many kids, and we can only take 23 at a time because of the boat and the bus. And then in the summer, I build, right? The infirmary has gotten to the point where they're not worried about them having possessions anymore. So we've gotten radios and watches and clothing and toiletries and all that for them. So now they all want cabinets. So I built cabinets or benches or lockers or whatever for everybody in the infirmary. Virtually everyone I've built. Usually I get about 5 or 6 built in the summer, right? And then they ask, that somebody else wants one. And so it's
add them to the list, huh?
Yeah, it's never ending. Unfortunately, the last couple of years of COVID, we haven't been able to go in to the infirmary. They just left us in this past summer, which was big. So I think we'll be able to get the kids in there next year. So Susie came up with this great idea that we should build a guy a house. A guy that's worked there, we've known since we started going there. And his son, who's Brendan, who we've known since he was an infant, lived in a 10-by-10 dirt floor shack up in the hills. And so Brendan, as he got older, he was 22, 23, started being a little bit more embarrassed about his life because he has a full-time job, but doesn't make that much money. So Susie thought, well, let's build him a house. Okay.
Easier said than done, huh?
Well,
big undertaking.
I mean, if you remember the Magalottis, they donated $2,000 to get us started, and the rest has been donated by yours truly, right? But the first year, Shorty, the guy that we're building it for, and Patrick, one of the other workers down there, and myself, built 2 bedrooms and a bathroom right next to their 10-by-10 shack. So we went to 2 12-by-18 bedrooms and a bathroom with running water. Right, so that's a big
thing.
Change.
Yeah.
And then the next year, we built a kitchen, living room, and 3rd bathroom and porch, and tore the old shack down out the front. Didn't get finished because I only have 9 days in the summer.
Right. Not a lot of time to build a house.
Right. Not a lot of time with 3 people to build a house. And getting supplies, you're at the mercy of the hardware. You can't get everything. I take a lot of the nails and screws and that kind of stuff, but lumber and sand and concrete, when they deliver it, I don't have a vehicle. So we got everything under roof and enclosed, and then this past summer, we finished the kitchen, finished most of the tiling, a little bit of tiling to finish yet and everything, finished the bathroom and everything. So a little bit to do cosmetically inside. I've done all the electric, and we've done all the plumbing and everything. So a little bit to do cosmetically inside, and then we got to finish the outside, because you can't leave bare wood on the outside. So we have to wire mesh and stucco the outside. And a lot of students that are interested in going back next summer, which once they've graduated, they go along just because they want to go back.
Right.
And that'll give them something to do. They can paint
Yeah,
They'll
that's
get
true.
more paint on themselves. Usually when I build cabinets and I have students there, I let them paint the cabinets, and it looks more like paint wars than it does anything else. But that humanitarian part has just become huge. And I have to thank the community. I have to thank. We have a couple of benefactors that help us every year. It's become a lot more than just a marine biology trip. So.
Yeah, it seems. I know it's exploded. There's a lot of interest. You talked about taking 2 different groups down now. Is that something you're able to continue to do now that you've retired from your teaching position?
Yeah, that's going to continue, and that's one of the first questions Dr. Trigger asked me when I went in and told him I was retiring. Well, the first one was football, and the second one was Jamaica. Continue to do that. And the other thing, there's been other schools that have expressed interest in going, and it's pretty hard to just go without
having someone to walk you
through everything. So Mifflin has gone with us, and they're planning on going next year, and I'll go along and teach that first year, and then they'll have a teacher there that will hopefully then take over. And there's a couple other schools that have expressed interest. So, probably going to end up expanding it. So pretty unique the hotel literally owns the building, but we own everything inside. So it's, I don't know how many high schools have their own marine bio lab
in a foreign country.
Probably be unique, I would think.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I know I've talked with Justin about it many times because I know he's been on the trip, and it's always cool to hear his stories and see pictures. And I always like when you go down to see the students posting pictures of what's going on, and everyone always talks so highly about the educational experience, but also the personal experience as well. So I wanted to make sure we got to talk to you about that before we focus on the football. So thanks for sharing. So let's quick look back at 2022. 8-3 overall, second place in NLL Section 1. Quarterfinals lost to Harrisburg, ended the season. We talked about that to the students already and your assistant coaches, but what were your takeaways from last season, the way 2022 went? Is there anything that stands out as something to improve on in 2023, or something you feel like you discovered last year and would like to continue this season?
Well, if you start with the first loss with Roman Catholic, I don't know that we've ever been out conditioned like that before, and I don't know if we were out conditioned as much as it was just a hot night, and we had kids. We had one kid, 2 or 3 kids going down with cramps, and we weren't as deep. As, there were some really important players that went down, and we didn't have the second half. And, things fell apart at the end of the second half. And, they had that big 6, and then the 6-point game became a 12, 13-point game. And then they scored again. I think the kids are looking forward to that game because obviously they've been out. They've got some really good football players, and it will be a nice game to win right out of the chute. Because their program is really climbing up to be like a St. Joe's Prep, a LaSalle, things like that.
Yeah, that's who they're chasing.
Yeah.
When you get to play them there, which will be a little bit different experience for the team.
Yeah, a little different going to one of the super sites. Or no, I guess we're playing them at Upper Dublin.
Yeah, is that the Upper Dublin one?
That's the Upper Dublin game. But it'll be a little different, going down to the Philadelphia area. And I don't know if it's their home site because they play at a whole bunch of different sites. But, we'll have a captive audience. We'll be ready.
So the only other thing I wanted to talk about from 2022, just to get your insights on it, because Justin and I don't like to grab you guys, the coaches, or the players after losses. I know there's a lot going on, and we don't want to rehash it right after it happened, especially if there are some things that people are miffed about. Looking at the Hempfield game, there were some questions about kicking formations or attempts on the field goal, PATs that they were blocked. What was going on with that? Do you remember back to that game with what was going on with? Did we think that Hempfield was lining up incorrectly or hitting the center? I'm trying to recall what was going on, but I remember that being a big point of the Hempfield game was that the kicking situation.
Yeah, they were hitting the center. You're not allowed to hit the center. He's got his head down, he's protected. And the officials were saying, he's lifting his head up and everything. But it's we just should have done a better job, with our guards, when they started doing that, and we saw what they were doing. But, hey, officials are going to call games the way they see them. You're not going to lose it. You shouldn't lose a game because of the official, or win a game because of officials. So, if we're going to get those calls, then we got to figure out a way to, compensate.
So we're now a year down, or you're finished of the Berks LL merger. How did you feel the first year went? I know there wasn't as many implications in Section 1, but the trickle down through the league, did you hear good feedback by it? Did teams like having the Berks teams, other than Wilson, new to the league?
I didn't hear any negative at all. I think what they really liked was the parity, because now all of a sudden, you've got several teams in each division that's capable of winning. And you don't have, like Manheim Central and LS, and that's it, or Vocalico, and that's it. Now you've got 3 or 4, teams that are going to be right there battling for a championship, and some of the other 3 or 4 teams that gives them a chance. Because now a team that was going 0-10 or 1-9 has a chance to go 5-5. And boy, you can see that when Mifflin went to the IC, jumped out of the LL, went to the IC, and went 5-5, how it turned their program around. So, when teams are more competitive, it's better for everybody.
Well, it seemed that each of the sections, if I recall, even with a few really strong teams, a lot of their key games were later in the year. It didn't seem like there was one just running away with it. There was always a key game coming up that could swing it either way. But all the sections seemed to be very competitive down to, the final weeks of the weeks 8, 9, 10 seemed to be very interesting throughout the entire league. So I think that was definitely a benefit. And like you said, the parity in the smaller programs being able to play against comparable sized schools and athletic levels. So
I think week 10, there was 3 or 4 of the divisions were going to be decided by the game.
Depending on what happens, yeah.
Which is pretty impressive.
That's what you want.
Yeah,
that's what the schedule makers want. Absolutely. For fan engagement. So, so looking to 2023 now, whether locally, state, or national, is there any changes to high school football that you think the fans and community should know about? Rule changes, equipment, personnel. Is there anything that came up this year that will impact the game or strategy or how the officials call it?
Nothing really outstanding,
Nothing with clocks or anything, because I know in basketball they're talking about shot clocks and adding that and things like that. Nothing in football, though?
No, everything there is still pretty much the same. There's a couple of minor changes. I'll have to reread the new changes, when we have a rules interpretation meeting and all that. But hopefully they'll start to reinterpret, a few of the plays. There's some things like when the helmet comes off, we had that in the Harrisburg game, the defensive player, pushed the offensive player's helmet off, and we got a 15-yard penalty for continuing to block without his helmet. Because when your helmet comes off, you must stop playing. That's the rule. Well, so he pushes the helmet off, and we have to stop playing.
Shouldn't that have been a penalty on them?
It should have been.
Illegal hands to the face.
See it, right? But I don't see anything major now.
Okay.
It'd be nice if they would bring. The National Federation has allowed instant replay. Right.
I assume that's a technological issue for most schools.
Well, what I push for the PIAA is why can't we do it in playoffs?
Okay.
Virtually every school has an end zone camera and a sideline camera. And when PCN is there, I talked to the PCN people. They said it's real easy. They could easily network them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I do.
Because in a playoff game, a call can be the difference in whether you're going to continue your season or not.
Yeah. Well, I was with Bruce Badgley, Kerry Moyer, Eastern PA Football. He did his broadcast through Penn Live, and he has immediate instant replay on little iPad setup. It's so the technology has become so accessible now for anyone. And it's still pricey, but it's just seemed to be something that could make sense for, like you said, at least start in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, the PIAA's response was the PCN's not at every game.
No, but there are cameras at every game.
Cameras at every game. I don't know.
Is there a team that doesn't have a huddle count or something like that?
Right.
I can't imagine that there are many out there.
In today's world, I can't imagine.
No.
Especially if they're making playoff. If they're a playoff kind of team.
Well, if we know anything, it'll take a decade.
Just like, it's a priority, it's a prerequisite that if it rains, you have turf. Make it a prerequisite.
Right. They have other rules in there. Why can't
Right.
that be one of them?
Right.
If they want to get, give teams 2 years heads up. By 2025, you have to have this ability
Well,
if you want to
you
host a
remember
game.
Harrisburg several years ago when they fumbled in their own 4-yard line, and the official said, "Oh no, he was down." And every picture you see, the ball's on the ground and he's standing there. And then the official said, he would have ran out of time. You know, timeouts. Well, there's 4 seconds left. Change of possession.
Right.
Instant replay. That would have
changed
changed the
overruled.
whole thing. And now we kick an extra, kick a field goal. We go on. In big games like that, they should have. They just should have.
We'll see it. It'll just take a while,
Yeah.
as anything does. When you're talking about any bureaucratic organization, things are not swift. So I'm sure, as you know. How about we talked about some changes on the coaching staff, some losses. Do you have any new coaches, outright new people joining the program, or people shifting roles other than the departure of Coach Bender?
Well, Eric Baumann also resigned. All right. And we brought on a new guy who was coached before down south, Dave Taverner. He's
Okay.
a social studies teacher in the lower house. He coached in Virginia for several years at all levels, high school, JV and junior high. So he's learned the ropes, trying to take over. And then what he'll do is he'll work with the D-line, along with Ryan Walker.
Okay.
They'll pick up pretty quick.
Who besides? I mean, everyone.
And Pat Zerbe's helping us out.
You're right. Yes,
You know,
in a voluntary capacity.
Voluntary
Yeah.
because he can't be there all the time, so he'll
Sure.
be helping out with. He's been helping with the tight ends, and again, learning. I mean, he played for Penn State, so he knows but he's learning our system and our offense.
Yeah.
And then Chad's going to help out mostly Chad Henny's going to help out mostly in a
Consultation type role.
Yeah, he'll be at practice once or twice a week. He'll be at the games. He loves breaking down film, so he really just looking at it from a different perspective to see, what he can do or what we could do a little different from his perspective.
So that's a fun addition. I know a lot of people were wondering once he announced his retirement what his plans and future goals were, and people mention coaching at Wilson comes up all the time. But
well, he's also coaching his son's Van Reed.
Right.
He's helping coach his son's Van Reed football team. Chase is 9, so
he's got a few years left before he's up here
Right.
With you, right? And in like 9 years, right? Yeah, still.
Whatever. We'll see.
We'll see. So 2023, who are the top teams in the LL this year? Who are the ones that stand out to you? Are we looking at the same that have been up there in the last few years, or is there someone that could surprise?
Township's pretty loaded in the skill positions. The
Quarterback's back, right?
He's back, and he just signed, I think, with Monmouth.
I believe you're right. I believe it was Monmouth.
And their one wideout is,
Is that Kennel?
Yeah. They're doing a really nice job, and
Get them here this year.
And they're always going to be tough. The question usually with them is how we handle the trenches. But that's always going to be a barn burner game. And Mark Evans has been around a long time, and obviously I guarantee we're circled on his calendar. Right? And then Hempfield, George has George Egger, who coached here, and he has him going. He has a nice staff. He gets the kids buying in and believing. So he lost a lot, but with a school that size. They'll just rebuild.
Well, that's what Justin and I have always said when we talked about Hempfield, that if they could get the right coaching staff there, that could really, it was like a sleeping giant out there.
It's like Cumberland Valley. It's they just got all the tools.
It's such a huge. I remember going out there and looking at the size of the kids that they would try out there along the offensive line. They looked like a college team at times, but they never seemed to put it all together. And I don't know what was wrong, but once Coach Eager was hired, Justin and I looked at each other like, that's not good, because we knew that he would get that program where it needed to be. They would be able to hit the next gear, and we saw it last year. They were able to come here, and I mean, to us, certainly an upset, and they sure came in expecting to win that game, and they did what they needed to do to get it done. It was very impressive. I think they wore down towards the end. I think Wilson. I think you guys really beat them up in that game, and it was a tough going for them the rest of the season. I know they lost in the semis in the playoffs, but They lost a lot, but quarterback's back. That counts for a lot. And when you got a guy who's did he just commit to USC? Poly, I think. I think it was USC. You've got some building blocks, so that'll be interesting.
Got some tools.
And you got to go to Landisville. So it's always an interesting trip to Landisville.
Always interesting. A mile walk to the field. Death Valley.
So those are two games. Roman Catholic, because it makes it easy for the players and you coaches to say Roman Catholic because it's week one. We're 1 week at a time. But also you want to you're excited for that game because of losing to them last year. But Hempfield and Manheim Township definitely jump out.
Week two, don't count them out. I mean, everybody can say a losing record last year, but they played a ton of underclassmen because of that.
Yeah, they had an interesting year. They were 3-7, started 0-3, but played three good teams out of the gate. In week two, then had to go to Coatesville the next week. They started at least an underclassman at quarterback for sure.
Fourth string quarterback by the end.
By the end of the year, they were down to their fourth string. Now the starter though is back, I believe, and he's a little bit of a different player than they're used to. They want to run the ball,
right?
But the way he runs the ball is out of pocket more so. It'll be interesting to see how they adapt. But you expect them to be better this year with all the returning players.
They're always tough.
They're always physical for sure.
They had an injury-ridden year last year. Is what happened. They lost 3 quarterbacks. Imagine what happens if we get down to our 4th quarterback.
You might be talking about
a tough season.
Sophomore, freshman. Yeah. It would be rough. Yeah. Going to MLK. Played them here the last 2 years. Going down to MLK, playing in the Philly suburbs for that game, I think too.
Right. That's a super site.
Yeah. It's
that'll be interesting because I don't imagine the field is going to be the best. It'll be interesting to see how our fans travel.
I believe that game's also a 6:30 start time too. So something
they want to get it over before
get it done before it's too dark. So at Roman Catholic down to Philly, Central Dauphin at home. That's the home opener. Then at Martin Luther King back towards Philly area. Then you get to open league play since the Berkshire merger moved things up. You got 3 non-league games to start, and then a non-league game against Mifflin a little later. We'll get to that. But Reading, how's Reading look this year? I think they lost a lot, didn't they?
They did.
Rodriguez, Verdeen.
They lost their playmakers, but the thing about Reading is they're always going to have a couple playmakers. The question with Reading is whether they're going to put a line out there. Are they going to be smart, big, aggressive? They're always going to have skill kids. I don't know. They have a tough road to hoe. Just getting the players out, getting them on the same page, getting them over the summer. That's tough. But I expect them to be improved because it's their head coach's second year.
Coach Troy.
You got a year under your belt, you a little better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expect him to eventually get that program rolling and then regain some respect in the league that they haven't. They haven't been very strong for about 20 years now. It's been a tough go since 03, 04, I think was the last time they were a really strong team. Wilson Reading was huge when I played here with you, and it's really fallen off. Well, you guys didn't play for 10 years after they left the LL, so it was nice to be back. Nice to be back.
It's like the reason I ran into Singleton's dad after freshman year after our game. I was over at dropping my car off for inspection and ran into his dad, and my wife was Susan's with me. She's still white. He said, "Yeah, we had to get out of the city. We wanted to move out in the suburbs." And Susie's like, "What the heck did you go to Mifflin for?" He said, "We couldn't stand Wilson. That was an intense rivalry, back then. So we were moving out, but we weren't.
It was not moving to Wilson, huh?
If it wouldn't have been for that intense rivalry, who knows? He would have been on our team, but."
Yeah, well, that's the new millennium, turn of the century. Wilson Reading was. Wilson Mifflin had kind of fallen off because there were four years in a 6-year period where we didn't play.
Right.
Because of dropping from section. Well, I think they dropped from 1 to 2, and then they came up for 2 years. Then we dropped from 1 to 2. So that rivalry and also Wilson was dominating the rivalry towards the time that was happening, and then especially when they left for the IC, which you already said that did wonders for their program to build it up. But Wilson Reading was the game. I mean, those games in the early 2000s with Chad Henne and James Bryant, from their freshman seasons of 2000 all the way through their senior year in 03. those were huge
Well, they had a
games.
stretch there that they had probably 3 or 4 Division I football players.
Right. You know, talking about, well, James' older brother Sam was
Right.
a great player.
Went to
He went
Pitt.
to Pitt, and then
Cook.
Lamar Stewart,
Lamar Stewart
right,
went to Penn
Cook.
State,
So yeah,
Cook
I mean,
went to Villanova. You know, just yeah.
yeah. It's funny to hear him say that. Oh, we're not going to Wilson because I went to Reading, and but I mean that's what makes high school football so much fun, is those local rivalries. So speaking of, well, first you have Cedar Crest. There were a team that I heard if there was a surprise team, if it wasn't Wilson Township or Hempfield, I heard some people say that they thought Cedar Crest had some talent coming back.
Cedar Crest always has skill kids, you know, and I mean last year they couldn't handle Cam Jones. Let's face it.
Not too many teams can.
Yeah, true, but you know, every time he touched the ball, I think he scored in that game, and we didn't even have a whole lot of offense. I think he only played 4 offensive downs in the whole game. You know, when you talk about stats, but yeah, they couldn't handle the big plays, and they do have some skill. It's just a question of how they are up front.
Then Mifflin, who also had a down year last year, you know, had this great run in 2020, 2021, lost a lot, went 3-7 last year. Finally get them back at Gursky. It's been a few years since they were able to come here. Last time they were here, they put a hurt in them. So I'm sure the fans and the players are excited to take them to the field at Gursky this year. What do you expect from Mifflin this year? Do they have much talent coming up or coming back?
They had a couple nice linemen. They got a pretty decent quarterback coming back. I don't know. You know, Scuttlebutt Ford is not there anymore.
Right, I heard there may be some transfer stuff going on, possibly to your week 1 opponent. I don't know. There's been stuff all out there.
We've heard that. So, you know, who knows? You know, you can throw all that out anyway. It's Mifflin.
Right.
You know,
the records don't matter.
No, they don't.
Then Hempfield. We already talked about Coach Eager and his team, and we know that so close last year. Last few seconds touchdown gave Hempfield the win. Penn Manor at home, at McCaskey. Before we finish with Manheim Township, we talked about Coach Evans' team, and that they look to be a really good team again. But then looking ahead at District 3, we already talked about Central Dauphin a bit because you play in week 2, but I heard Cumberland Valley looked pretty good at the East Stroudsburg camp.
Cumberland Valley is big up front. They've got really nice running backs. They're looking for a quarterback.
Very different offense since you played them last.
Yeah, you're not your base wing team where Josh Oswald is, you know, got them a lot more spread, but they still like to run the ball.
Okay.
They use a lot of 2-back sets.
So they didn't have a quarterback coming back though. He graduated.
No,
okay.
Their quarterback was a pretty nice athlete. He wasn't a great quarterback. He was a great athlete, but that made their offense click.
Very good.
So he's got, you know, 2 or 3 guys he's rotating through trying to figure out, you know. By that time, they'll be pretty good. Yeah.
Then obviously the other one that both the players and even the coaches hinted to just a few moments ago, Harrisburg, going to be another kingpin in District 3, I assume.
Well, you know, their quarterback is back.
Will he be a senior this year or junior?
I'm not sure. Who knows?
I feel like he's been there forever.
He's been there forever.
Yeah.
But, you know, they lost the big running back who really gave us fits. You know, they've lost a lot of, you know, we couldn't handle Reynolds defense.
Terrell, yeah.
He was the real deal. Well, defensive player of the year, I believe, in the state.
And, they have the receiver back.
The
We've got a
receiver's
bunch
back.
of D1 offers.
They've got talent. Let's face it. They've got a lot of talent. We'll see. You know, we got to get there first.
To have
we got a lot to do before that.
What would be, well, I guess on paper it'd be 5 out of 6 years if you would get to play them at some point in November, facing off against the Cougars, and of course the COVID year thrown in there too. So it's been a while since
bring that one.
it's been a while since Harrisburg Wilson has come out on the Bulldogs side. So I know that's in the minds of everyone. It's not at the front yet because it's a long season, but I know that's creeping up under there. I don't really get to talk to Coach Bender about this, so you'll have to let me know what's going on with the helmet this year. What was the decision? And where we have a Bulldog, we have the football, do we have script? What's happening?
We decided last year that to let the kids have some ownership. with what goes on the helmet. So last year, remember, we had the scripted Bulldog on one side and the W,
Mm-hmm.
inside of the
The
football.
W
on the other
football,
side.
yeah.
This year, they decided to go with scripted Bulldogs on both sides.
Script on both sides. All right.
But we leave that totally up to them. I mean, I'm a little bit of a stickler for not changing certain things, but
Well,
they kind of talked me into it. They believe me. They wanted some other changes, and I said no.
well, I hear from the alumni base, and I know there's some that really want that Bulldog to always be on there.
Right.
So hearing that it'll be script on both sides will give them a mini heart attacks, I'm sure, when you walk out onto the field. If you have it on both sides for the scrimmage, if not, we'll see it at Roman Catholic, especially Central Dauphin when we get open at home.
Right.
So that's one thing to look forward to.
It is funny with the alumni because they said it's always been a Bulldog. No, it hasn't always been a
Well,
Bulldog.
I think actually right around when you got here is when it shifted to the
Well, it was
Bulldog.
a football when I got here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that might have been only when. So when was your first year here?
76.
76. Okay, so you had the football then for 2-3 seasons
Yeah,
about.
I don't quite remember
I can't-
when we went
It
over
was
to
either
the
78 or 79. So
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at some plaques to figure
I have it written down somewhere. I know I put the date out there before. I want to say the first
Well, you
game
know
was,
what? The one history of Wilson football, the one year at all the Wilson football.
has the helmets. Yeah, I think that was the 29 through the 2019
Yeah.
season. I think that one
Sometimes
has it
those
on
are
the
hard
front.
to find.
Yes, yes. Um,
Everybody waits to see the cover. That's what it is. More exciting
Right.
than anything
What
else.
what changes are we getting this year? What's it going to look like? How am I going to be able to track it down by image instead of the spine or the ears? So I asked you about this last year, and I think it's just become even more to the forefront. Name, image, likeness trickle down in the high school. I think the PIAA actually already put out some rulings about it. And I saw as soon as I think the PIAA approved on whatever their second or third reading, and I think it was Rodney McGraw from somewhere in Laurel Highlands, I think out west, already had an agreement while still in high school. Have you had interactions with student athletes, parents, admin about NIL in high school?
PIAA says the coaches cannot be involved.
Yeah, I know you can't be involved, but like, have you people asking you about it?
People ask about it all the time, and I'm not a big fan of it. I look at a school that's a private school that can now say, okay, I mean, let's just take St. Joe's Prep. They can now say, okay, we can provide your parents with an apartment. We can provide you with an apartment. We can provide you with a car to get back and forth to school. And they can do all of that
Through
under
NIL.
NIL.
Right.
I think it's ridiculous in college. I think it's gotten out of control. I think the NCAA should have put some rules and guidelines in that they didn't.
Yeah, it became a free-for-all
It
2 years
became
ago.
a total free-for-all, and now they're seeing the results of it.
Wow.
There's some good ideas that people have out there. There's some team NIL stuff, I think, that like Penn State does, where, okay, every freshman gets this,
Mm-hmm.
above and beyond their scholarship. Every sophomore gets this. And that way you can't say, oh, I'm this. But the high school blue chippers now they're not going somewhere. They're waiting to see what they're going to be offered.
Right.
It's like the pros. You might as well make it like the pros. And, the Oklahoma State coach said, put them on a contract. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year contract. A 1 year contract after your first year, well, we may not renew your scholarship.
Right. I think there's a
That's a risk you take.
right. There's another side to it, not necessarily just NIL, but all the compensation for collegiate athletes that obviously this show isn't about. But there's definitely a side that people aren't considering. But you have no fear. The politicians are getting involved, so we know Congress will take care of it. So we are in safe hands.
Oh, yeah. No comment on that.
No, that's as much as I'll say about that topic for
Don't
sure.
talk to Susie either.
You know what? She would be a great guest on this show if I ever wanted to take it in so many directions. I might let Justin handle that though. That's his
Better hit
realm.
the mute button.
Are there any new faces from outside the program, not coaching wise, players, anyone that you think is going to have a big impact that maybe wasn't on the roster last year or wasn't on the varsity high school roster last year? Anyone that stands out or that people probably don't know about, but you think they should?
Well, people ask about transfers. It's the first thing everybody asks about. I think so far we have 3, but I don't know that any of them are going to play varsity football for the rest of this year.
Okay. Are they young? Are they
young? They're
underclassmen?
underclassmen, and they're not standout. They're just Joe average. They just happen to move.
Okay.
You know, they're not moving to Wilson because of football. That's for sure. We have some young. You know, we brought a couple of freshmen up this year, more so than normal. That's a huge learning curve for them, both mentally and physically. You know, trying to get to learn our system offensively, defensively, and you know, they're used to being the big fish in the little pond, and now they're just the little fish in the big pond. So we'll see how it progresses. You know, I don't know that any of them are going to be superstars this year, but you know, the potential is there that they could be impact players by next year.
All right, how about looking at the guys that you know well that have been here for a few years, especially the senior class? Is there someone part of this 2023 group that stands out as someone who didn't make a big name for himself the first 2 years in the program, but you think will really shock people this year, is poised for a breakout season as a senior?
I think, you know, if you are, you know, our wideout crew is, and I can't say who's going to, I mean, Eddie Case obviously was an impact player last year, but, you know, Austin Valjavich had a really nice game against Harrisburg, breakthrough game against Harrisburg. Jackson Wagner's done some really nice things. Max Gruber's done some nice things. You know, we have a nice core of wideouts, you know, and then you have a senior quarterback that's been doing a really nice job with them. So hopefully he'll be able to spread the ball around. And you know, I don't know that we're going to be, you know, one of the things we've been pushing this year is, you know, last year everybody looked to Camp Jones to make a big play. This year, you know, it's going to be more of a team effort. I mean, we don't have superstars. We have some nice, solid receivers. We've got a nice, solid quarterback. Running back, we'll wait and see where we're at with that. We're pretty solid up front. So offensively, you know, it could be a, you know, a grinded out, you know, possession offense. I'm not saying grind it out on the ground, just a lot of possession receptions and just keep moving the football, which would help us because we're young defensively. You know, we lost a lot more on the defensive side. So. Superstars, not yet.
The departure of Cam Jones has obviously been brought up by your players and the coaches, just that it brings about change, because you mentioned there's no one as electric as he was for the last few years, but there seems to be more of a committee approach, and the team has really rallied around the leadership that has stepped up from the senior class and the returning experience you have. Has that resulted in schematic changes, or is it more just not focusing on one person all the time?
Schematically, we're not doing a whole lot different. You know, we really didn't do a whole lot different last year. It's just that, you know, Cam was, as you said, electric when he got the ball. And the thing that people didn't realize is the field position we had last year because of him. Nobody would kick to him. So, and, you know, we did all different things with, if they pooched it, we would turn and throw it to them. So they stopped pooching. And then all they did is just start dribbling. They didn't want to kick it hard enough that it got back to him.
Or they'd attempt to kick it out of bounds.
Yeah, so they ended up, you know, they would kick the ball, and we get the ball at the 40-yard line at worst, starting position for kickoff returns. And punts, forget it. They just kick the ball out of bounds or go for it, you know, because, you know, they knew he was a threat to go all the way. Now, hopefully, our special teams buys in, and we have one or two guys that can, you know, I don't know if they're going to be as electric as Cam, but can buy into that, you know, we feel that the special teams can be a scoring weapon for us.
It would be, if you would follow up Cam Jones' return skills with someone that could match that, that'd be incredible. We saw last year, I know he's not here anymore, but Mekhi Cooper also returned a kickoff for a touchdown. But Eddie Case also, I believe, had a couple of nice punt returns. He might have taken one back for a score. Is he also going to be returning this year, or because of his role in offense and defense, is that not in the cards for him?
He'll probably end up returning for us. I mean, there's some other guys. You know, Carell Akins is a little more inexperienced, but can be a pretty nice return man. Amir Wellmaker's got quickness. Obviously, punts, I think it's going to be Eddie. Kickoff returns, we might give him a break just because he's going to be offense, defense. You know, it's nice to get a one. Well, at least he won't be long snapping. I mean, Cam didn't even get a break there on punts because he long snapped. Yeah, at least Eddie will get a break. He'll get a break on punts.
What are your expectations from this team here at the end of July before, heat acclimatization and two-a-days start? After going through the off-season program, knowing this group of seniors and this team that's been built, what are your expectations for the year?
I think the senior leadership is going to be big. The thing we got to do right now is we got to get a sophomore group to buy in, practice-wise, to practice harder than they've ever practiced before, because they struggled as a ninth grade group last year. We just got to get them to buy in, because those people don't realize the Tuesday, Wednesday players make the Friday players. So those are the guys that have to give us the look on a Tuesday or Wednesday and push the seniors, to be the best they can be. And if we get them to buy in, the sophomore and junior class to buy in, to work that hard, that will be okay. We'll have a chance of winning a couple.
A couple? That's what you're banking on? Two to three?
2 or 3.
All right, last thing, just like to always end with, do you have anything you want to say to the fans or the community before the season gets underway? Anything at all?
Our fan base is always good. I mean, there's people in those stands that are 70 years old that have come to every game and they have no affiliation anymore with Wilson other than they went here, but they're just diehard football fans. And the student fans were terrific last year. I'm sure they're going to be pumped up and psyched about that. I mean, it's Friday nights at Wilson is just a different thing. Those home games, there's just there's an ambiance there. There's support from the community, support from the staff, the administration, the fans, all the little kids running around. It's just a special thing. It's what makes football fun.
And expect more of that in 2023. The school has a bunch of events happening. There's always something going on. We got Gold Out and Green Out and Band Night and Youth Night, and the Tradition Club always has an event, and you have Senior Night, so there's always something going on, something for everyone, in addition to hopefully a lot of wins out on the turf at Gursky this fall.
And I know you've been getting pursued, whether you're going to sponsor, what's the one coming up?
Which one?
For the alumni.
The
alumni flag.
The flag. That's a year away. We got another year. Yeah.
80th?
Yeah. This is season 79 this year. So season 80 is 2024. So, in 2019 we had the big 75th season event, and yes, the plans for the season 80. It won't be as big as 75. 75 sticks out as kind of a big milestone, but we do want to commemorate the 80th season in some capacity, and that will be happening. But the Tradition Club has already started speaking about what we want to do, and there will be a flag football component as long as we can get enough people interested. But at the end of the event almost 4 years ago, a lot of people were like, wow, I wish I would have played. So there's going to be an opportunity.
Some people have played. I spent some time with Greg Storr. He just got inducted
into the
yes. Football Hall of Fame. And I don't know if you remember on the one, Greg was in 78.
I believe his senior fall, I think, was 78. Yeah, 78? Class of 79.
And he, on one pattern, he ran out and up, and somebody threw. Now that would make Greg 62 at the time or something like that. I don't know. He was pretty old. But he ran out and up, and they threw it, and he dove for it, and he landed. Unbeknownst to anybody at the time, he cracked 3 ribs.
Oh, did he really? Oh, I didn't. Oh, man. So Mark Keever wasn't the only injury to come out of the flag football game. No. Yes. Yeah, I think, you know what? I think Greg was class of 78, senior fall 77, I think. But yeah, that would have put him. Right. That would have put him in his his early mid 60s, I guess.
23, right, 40, it was probably early 60s, 60, 61.
Well, it was. Honestly, the most shocking thing to come out of that event was how hard everyone played. I thought for sure, and the intensity ramped up a bit, but the way that first quarter group, and that was everyone I think from, was it the mid 80s, earlier, like basically from anyone that played from 1945 through 1984, or some arbitrary cutoff because of who I had registered. I had like a 40-year allotment for the first quarter to get 20 guys out there or whatever it was. But how they took that seriously. Oh, yeah. It was still fun, and there was no bad attitudes or anything, but they were there to play. Yeah. They were, and That's what made it so fun, though, is that people weren't just goofing around.
Steve Yeager ends up sitting with my wife a lot of times. At a lot of the football. He comes to every game. He lives in Harrisburg, but he comes to every game, home or away. And he said he was sore for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, this serves as your early announcement that if you are a former football player and you would like to participate in the 80th season event, be on the lookout, because I started gathering information and trying to get people to play. I was pleading with people to play up till the summer before because we didn't have enough. And then finally it started trickling in August. I got a lot of responses like, I'm 50 years old. I can't be running around. I was like, it'll be fine. You'll have fun. And now a lot of those guys were like, I regret not playing. So they'll get another shot. We're going to do it again. Yeah, that's right. This is your, you got what? This is like a 14-month notice that it's time to start hitting the weight room, start walking in your neighborhood, get ready for 80th season flag football because it's coming back.
Trainers are going to be busy.
That's right, yeah. So, and if you would like some, I didn't even get to ask you about this, but we talk about it with the assistant coaches. If you need a sports psychologist, that's apparently someone within Wilson School District that has that capacity. So if you want to get ready for this flag football game, we can reach out to her. Who I'm probably going to see if she wants to at least do an email interview, if not an actual interview for the show, because I find that very fascinating. So
yeah, she's done a nice job for us so far.
Mrs. Cammauf.
Yeah, Cammauf.
Just Cammauf.
Touches on she's a guidance counselor
at Southern. Okay, yeah.
And just touches on things that sometimes we miss. You know, we're worried about what's going on Friday night. I mean, we obviously know a lot that's going on with our lives, but you know, sometimes there's more that how you handle things, how to cope with things, you know, and their personal lives affect that. So, I think it's going to be a real positive influence on our players.
Yeah, well, and the assistant coaches talked highly of it, and the players brought it up unprompted. So you know, it is having an impact. So. All right, well, Coach, I think that's all I've got for you this year. Appreciate you always taking the time to stop and talk with me and Justin before the season and after games. And I'm sure we will catch up with you plenty on Friday nights this fall. So best of luck on the season. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
All right, so thanks once again to Wilson football head coach Doug Dahms for joining me a couple weeks ago to talk about a whole variety of topics. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the diversion away from football to talk about Jamaica, and then one of the more popular topics recently was the sports psychology, and hopeful to have some more information and an interview with Mrs. Cammauf about her integration with the program this summer and the sports psychology angle that has been used. It's very, very, very interesting. But I think that's about it. I do want to say one more time thank you to our Season 9 sponsors of the Bulldog Hour, May's Sandwich Shop and White Star Tours. No other announcements from me. It's always a blast to sit down and interview Coach Dahms. And we will have if you haven't seen it already, I don't know when I'm going to transmit it, but I did get to sit down with assistant coaches that I missed before. So you're going to get to hear from Anthony Ciato, Jeremy Palm, and Mark Steinmeier. I don't know if I'm airing that before this show or after this show, but if you saw it, I hope you liked it. And if it hasn't aired yet, I hope you like it. And then we're back to full live, ready to interact with you as we recap the scrimmage and preview the entire season with Paul Roberts. That will be live and in person on Sunday, August 20th. And then we're weekly, mostly Sundays. There might be a Saturday thrown in there depending on the schedule in the fall. But we plan to have a show every week until the Wilson football season comes to its conclusion in 2023. And I think we all can agree that we hope that isn't until close to, if not after, Thanksgiving. If we're playing when Christmas lights start going up, it's been a great year. And I know a lot of us are always hopeful for that. But that's it for us here at the Bulldog Hour. For Justin Raffoff, Coach Dahms, and the Wilson football program, I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.